the transportation issue through the lens of jobs. Jobs is our number one theme for 2011. It is one of the four components of our I Am Empowered campaign. And so when we look at this, it is a jobs issue. Not only the jobs created by how transportation infrastructure and who builds it, but the jobs that people have access to if the transportation systems are intact. I have visited certain cities recently. I believe I was in Indianapolis. You still have cities in the United States that do not have regional transportation systems. What that means today is that inner city residents do not have access to jobs that might be located outside of the city, might be located in the inner ring suburbs. So when you think of transportation and transportation infrastructure, it affects jobs and economic empowerment on every level, and that's what the Urban League stands for, economic empowerment. If we look at the 20th century, massive and significant investments in infrastructure, whether it be developing public transit systems to the interstate highway system, to building a system of parks, playgrounds, museums, and community centers, really advance the economic development and economic fortunes and jobs of the 20th century. And I think to some extent, we take infrastructure investment for granted, and by taking it for granted, we don't pay attention to how important it is in terms of connecting people to jobs, making sure that housing is connected to public facilities that enhance the quality of life, like parks and playgrounds and libraries, which we not only have to build, but make sure people can connect to. So I think if people take a step back and really understand how important this is and what it really means to their lives, they wouldn't take it for granted and they'd become passionate about it. It's without question that we can make a giant leap and a giant stride, but I would point people to take a look at what nations like China are doing. I visited China a year ago. They're building high-speed rail. They're building transportation and non-transportation infrastructure throughout the nation. It's a big part of how they view the development of their economy. And in the United States, we do take it for granted. The transportation debate becomes a discussion of only those most interested, road builders, planners, some elected officials. When I was the mayor of a city, took a great interest in both Ice-T and T21 and how they were shaped. But we have a chance, but also I think now it's not only a chance, it's an imperative to pay attention to what this formula is about. There's not a lot of dialogue because I think all too often we need a greater number of community leaders, candidly, local and national elected officials, to pay attention to the dynamics. And paying attention to the dynamics means paying attention to more than did I get a pet project through an earmark process in the bill, but what the formulas are, because no matter how many project specifics are in the bill, it's the formula dollars that are going to really define how this money is spent and what communities are ultimately impacted. So we need people to wake up, elected officials, community leaders to wake up and understand the social justice and racial justice and the fairness dynamic that has to be built in to the new transportation bill. We had a big focus on upgrading one component of the flood controls in Louisiana, the drainage system, the subsurface drainage system, which removes rainwater and pumps it into the canals that take it to the lake and ultimately to the Gulf. It was the levees along those canals that ultimately broke. And what we learned is that they were not adequately engineered. They were poorly constructed. In some cases, the construction specifications were not even followed in, quote, the depth of the piling that was driven. And then we saw afterwards the failure of the federal government to adequately and quickly recognize that it had a duty and responsibility to help to rebuild those neighborhoods fully and completely. It still remains both the failure of the levees and the post-Katrina commitment and the way it was undertaken, where the earliest plans talked about allowing neighborhoods that had been destroyed to remain destroyed. It will remain one of the great black marks on the government of the United States. It's on multiple levels. It's to make sure, for example, that the formulas and how the projects are built and where they are built certainly be designed to help empower locked out and left out communities to have access to jobs and community improvement. On the second level, it's also about the jobs. Who will participate in the building of the transportation infrastructure? And I've long been a proponent that the transportation bill itself needs measures, provisions, language which requires and mandates that disadvantaged workers, businesses owned by people of color and women, have a fairer and a greater opportunity to participate in the building of this infrastructure. It's everyone's taxpayer dollars. Infrastructure and transportation infrastructure touches all 50 states in the Union, probably touches virtually every county in the United States, and therefore it is important that everyone have a participatory role in building it. I think that we've fallen short in that area in the past, and equity is not only about where it's built and what's built, but it's also about who builds it, and what businesses have an opportunity to grow and benefit from it too.